friends. Welcome to the Creative Impact Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Caldwell, and I'm so happy you're here. Each episode, I take some time to chat with fellow artists about life, faith, and the impact of the arts.
So we can create something, and there might be moments of weakness, but in those moments, we have to find that surrender in those weak moments, because that's when he takes over. It was weak, but it's going to resurrect and it'll be redeemed.
Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 62 of the podcast. I'm so excited to be back with you and bringing a new episode this week. It's been a minute since the last episode was released, and that is because it has honestly just been a super busy season. As you may have heard me talking about on the podcast in the past, I direct a high school dance team, and we've been in the midst of competition season, so it's been longer rehearsals and lots of events going on the weekends, but I have missed getting to bring you new, fresh content, and I'm super, super excited for you to hear today's conversation. It is such a gift to catch up with my sweet friend, Jocelyn Lewis, for this episode. Jocelyn and I met during our time dancing with Deum dance company, and she has been a dear friend ever since. Jocelyn has a beautiful heart for the Lord, for community, and for creating with a purpose. In our conversation today, Jocelyn shares about her journey training as a dancer and her professional career, and also about her current work as a teacher. We look at how beginning her professional career at the early age of 12 really impacted her journey. She also gives us a really close look at how her heart for ministering through dance developed and how she's seen the power of dance to bring light to the darkness in our world. Towards the later part of our conversation, we get more into the topics of community and family and motherhood, and also just what it looks like to have health in our bodies, minds, and spirits. Next week, I'll be posting some bonus content on Patreon with Jocelyn sharing more about how motherhood has impacted her as an artist. I think you're going to love it, and I can't wait for you to hear our conversation today. Let's jump right into my conversation with Jocelyn Lewis. Well, Joss, I'm so excited that you're here on the show and cannot wait to catch up with you today. It's going to be super fun.
Thank you, Rachel. Yes, it will. I'm so excited too. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. I feel like we're kind of basically family, even though
yes,
maybe technically we're not. For those that are listening, by blood, we're not, but
exactly,
we essentially are family.
Exactly. So many years of Ben knowing Micah's family, and then me knowing you, and then just all the connection that I can't wait to talk about today.
So fun.
So cool.
So for those that are listening, Jocelyn, I always want to say Poland, but Jocelyn Lewis.
Okay. It's okay.
So
yes.
exciting.
Thank you.
Yes. So she actually is the one who introduced me and my husband, Ben, which is really cool and kind of a random story, but it's really
so
fun.
Good. So good. We were hanging right at your house.
And then, so I guess we'll get to this in your story, but Jocelyn had been with Airs International Dance Company, and then had moved to Houston. You were dancing with Deum too with me. And then you were hanging out with me at my house, and then Ben calls with the whole company, like, hey, checking in. How are you doing?
Yes.
Yeah. And then you were like,
fun.
I'm hanging out with my friend Rachel. You want to say hi or whatever?
Yes. Cause I was like, hey, so I remember we were talking, I was like, yeah, so I think Ben and Micah are going to call me later. So it just happened to work out this weekend. And I was like, so here's who Ben is. So
exactly. And you're showing me all these videos.
Yes.
Photos. I knew who he was. I was like, okay.
You're like,
context.
Oh, yeah. And then we connected the sisters and then Bellhaven and all that.
Exactly. And Ben is probably like, who is this person? But then we got to meet at Project Dance in person, and then the rest is history.
Yes. And just a beautiful love story. I love it. It's so great. And then I've been thinking about the engagement, how Micah and I were there.
Yes.
And then I took all those photos, and I was like, thinking the other day, this is so funny. I was like, I know that they're probably just ready to just hang out and go on a date after their engagement. I'm just sitting there taking all these cute photos of them. And they're just like, can we just be done? No, I'm just kidding.
No,
but I was
amazing.
thinking about that. I was like, but it was so fun. Like it was such a fun time. And it was such a good day.
That was a great day. It was so fun.
It was.
So Ben has committed, I guess, to coming on the podcast at episode 100.
Yes.
So yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm like, okay, 100, we're working towards it. But
yes.
So maybe I'll save like extra details of the engagement and all of that for that.
Definitely.
But
you save whatever you want to say.
Yeah, but I love the fact that you guys were there. And
so
honestly,
fun.
Those are some of my favorite photos are from, because it's like that day, you know?
And it's, yes. And I feel like some people don't have that, you know, and that was fun. And it was such a beautiful area, you know, Discovery Green. And it's just such a great pretty place. Yeah.
And we got like, you know, engagement photos later that are like the official ones, but I'm like, there's something special about it being the actual moment. So
and I remember Ben saying that. He was like, I think she's really going to want this. So can you do this? I was like, heck yes, I got you.
Perfect. I know. So fun. But anyway, so for those who are listening,
you'll talk more about that later.
Yeah, we have all sorts of fun connections and basically our family. We're just going to go with that. We'll just leave it there.
Yes. And all Deum, of course, everything was wonderful there.
Yeah. Deum was
excited
so
to talk about that.
Because we were there the same 2 years.
Yes. I
think we came in together.
We did
at the same time. So
that was perfect. Great 2 years to be there too. Yeah. And the second year when you were helping lead the company, so great. Such a big company that year. 20 plus people in that company or something.
You know, I had kind of forgotten about the fact that we were so big.
It was huge. And Randy kept on saying, this is the largest 82 has ever been.
Maybe has been since. I'm not sure.
Honestly, probably. Yes.
Probably.
Special years.
That was really fun. And then, this is another random side note, but that y'all danced in our wedding, which was super fun.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Yeah. Just another really beautiful day. Just everything was so wonderful.
And then we got to be at your wedding. You and Micah, which was so great. Okay. Sorry, people. We're just having kind of a freak out moment.
I know this happens when you don't catch up before. Exactly. But it's good. It'll make today fun.
Exactly. So. Save all the excitement. But that was such a beautiful day too.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was just everything coming together was so amazing. So I'm glad we were able to be there and celebrate.
Me too. It was wonderful. Yes.
And
you
and Micah had a legit first dance.
We did. We were like
epic.
I feel like this is what everybody's waiting for. So why don't we just do it?
Yes. Okay. Remind me of the song.
It was, oh gosh.
It's okay. We can cut that out.
Yeah, it's okay. It's not Fred Astaire. It's wow.
I can picture the whole like what was happening, but I didn't really know the song.
It's Love and Marriage by my phone's right here, so I can't look it up. But we'll have to. That's a good one. It's a good one.
So fun.
Why can't I think of it?
I could Google it. Let's see.
He's the famous,
like Frank Sinatra or something?
Frank Sinatra. There you go. I'm pretty sure.
Okay, let's see.
No.
Oh yeah, it does say Frank Sinatra.
Yes, it is Frank Sinatra. Okay, I was like, wait. Myself. That's horrible.
That's okay. So Love and Marriage by Frank Sinatra. That's so cool. Yeah, it was just really perfect.
Yes.
And
thank you.
One other memory that stands
out.
So
fun.
Yeah. Another memory that stands out from y'all's wedding was you definitely like went for it and you guys jumped in the pool. You were in your wedding dress.
Yes.
Epic.
Thank you. They were like, hey, remember we have a pool. I was like, oh my gosh, what if we did this? Because I was trying to, talk with the photographer. She was like, well, what do you want to do for your send off? I was going, because that place wouldn't let us do like any fire or anything, like, any of that stuff, which a lot of places, don't allow that. But yeah, so we definitely had fun with that and surprising everybody. We didn't even tell my mom, like we didn't tell, because I was like, she might freak out if I tell her that.
Right. And be like, nope.
Just bought me. Yeah, exactly. But is literally just our wedding party that we told like the day before. So that was fun. We didn't have anybody changing our minds going into it because we had our minds made up. So
yeah, that's so
I
fun.
mentioned it to the photographer and then Hannah Eckert. And I was like, so what if I did this? And they were going, oh gosh, yes. And then the photographer got back to me and was like, we have to. She was like, I literally can't think of anything better. So it was fun. And then like our videographer, you know, they had the lights and everything. Yeah. It was so fun. And Jeff was like, splash the water, splash. So that definitely made the pictures dramatic and really fun. So
yeah, it helps when you have artistic people all around you that are like, here's how we can make this even cooler.
Yes. And I actually So our videographer real quick, like just got me all of the footage from that day. He gave me all of it because he's still in the middle of like, he's pretty much going to make us like a video, like a movie length wedding video stuff out of everything. So it's like, I'm really excited. So it's one of my friends that I've known. And but I went back and watched that. I was just laughing. I was like, that's so fun. Everybody's like, wait, what's happening?
What's happening? Yep.
Oh, so good. Fun. Thanks for bringing that up. That's fun.
Yeah, for sure. Gotta bring that up. It's like,
oh yeah, it was definitely just chill. Yeah, it was just fun. Yeah,
for sure. Well, now that we've kind of gotten into a lot already, but you want to share a little bit about who you are?
I'd love to.
Kind of what you're doing right now, and then we'll jump back into how you got here.
Yes. So I've been dancing for over 20 years. Yeah. And I've been teaching for like close to 10 years now. I think this is my 10th season. Yeah. Yeah. It was my 10th season. Cool. So I love dance, still doing it, still pursuing it after all of these years. I became a mom back in 2017. So Micah and I have obviously known each other for a long time. Since we were 13 years old, we met and we became very good friends, doing ministry and dance together. We were dance partners, growing up. Yes. And, you know, did ministry together and stuff, saw each other all the time. Mm-hmm. It was kind of like a school friend, but not a school friend, you know?
Right.
And then, we sort of started liking each other when we were 16, but didn't start dating until we were 18. Out of high school, we decided to wait. We didn't really want to be that item, even though everybody kind of already, you know.
Yeah, people kind of knew, but like.
Yeah, yes, exactly. I remember our senior year, we surprised each other. We did surprise birthday things at dance for each other. Like his was in January, so I did this little surprise thing for him that last semester of dance. And then he did one for me a few weeks later. So our birthdays are pretty close. Yeah. So it was just really fun. So like everybody knew, they're like, are y'all dating already? And we're like, yes and no. So anyways, so we've just loved each other as people since forever. And, you know, that obviously grew. And then, so we have Quinn. He is 3 years old. He'll be 4 in November. So we're about to be planning his B-Day party.
He's gonna be 4. Wow.
Can't even believe it. Time
flying.
It really does. Insane. And when you have children, it's just like a blink and it's gone. It's like, whoa, I'm aging a lot quicker than I was ready for. And then I have a 6-month-old, or we have a 6-month-old. Yes. Her name is Phoebe. Yeah. And she is seriously just like so joyful. And so is Quinn. He's such a spunky kid. He's so fun. And they are wonderful, and they just like brighten our lives every day. Bring so much joy into this household. So
sweet.
Yes, we definitely thank and praise God for them. So so being a mom is great, but
that's awesome. I saw a picture that you posted of Phoebe being in like the splits the other day.
Oh my goodness. Yes. I'm not kidding. Cute. Every time I hold her, this girl's like spiraling. I'm like, Randy would be so impressed with this spiral right now. And in the splits, I'm like, honey, we've got a Graham modern dancer on our hands.
It's pretty amazing, actually. But I mean, it makes sense. You got dance in the genes on both sides. So
Yes. Yes. And I will get into more of that later when we talk about that. But yes,
cool.
it's very evident. That's for sure. It really is. So, and that's fun, but it's fun for
Definitely.
Jeff and Natalie to see as well. So
For
yes,
sure.
yes,
So
yes.
I don't know that I even know this, but what first got you into dance when you were younger?
Yes. So I started dancing whenever I was 6 years old. So I wasn't one of those 3-year-old dancers. I waited a little bit. Did some sports growing up until then. I was like, not for me.
Yeah.
Loved it, but it was like, no. And then, so I actually went to one of my cousin's dance recitals. She was really close in age to me. And so I watched her ballet dance on stage and then her tap dance. And this is really funny. We get back to her house after, we're all just hanging out. And I go up to her and I'm like, hey, Courtney, can I try on your tap shoes? And I literally wore the tap shoes all day, the whole time I was over there. We were there for a while that day. And I remember that very clearly in my head and everybody being like, are you going to take those shoes off? And I'm like, no, I'm not. And I was like asking her, I was like, so how do you tap? Can you teach me something? And I remember her like teaching me, just like basic shuffle, and maybe just doing that everywhere, and my parents were watching me going, I think we know what we're going to sign her up for. Obviously we had to wait a few months, for the fall classes. Cause I didn't do any summer or anything, but I just started in the fall. So so I started dancing in the fall. The first year, my dad loves sharing this. It's so funny. I wanted to quit after like that first semester because I was a pretty shy kid. And I was also put in a class with like older kids. So it's like the tap specifically. I was with an older group, like it was kind of spread out. And I was like, this is overwhelming, but my dad was like, you are doing so well. Like, just stick with it. Aww. Let's just, wait till the end of the year. And he loves to say that I'm still dancing because of him pushing me to do it. And I love that. I love that, like us as parents, like we can still push our children, like, cause they might not fully understand what's happening, but those parents are totally reading the situation, from, a mature mind and whatever. So anyways,
can see kind of all the perspectives and be like, okay, I think that we can make it through this. Yeah,
exactly. Like we think you love it. You're just getting discouraged, with these little things. Oh, and then at the recital, I forgot about this whenever I was writing my stuff up. At the recital, the tap number, every kid was watching me. Really? Because my dad was like, I'm going to practice with you, Jocelyn. Like, we're going to practice this dance. We're going to get the music from your dance teacher and we're going to go over it until you know it. So you feel so confident on stage. Cause I was literally like the youngest and I was 6-7 years old dancing with 12-year-olds on stage, 13, like high school, like not high schoolers, but
middle school,
teenagers is what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was crazy. But at recital, they were all watching me. Like it's literally the video. Like I'm just like doing the dance and like I have everything down and I'm having a blast and I'm just having a great time. Yes. And then also something really fun. My first ballet dance was to I Can Only Imagine. That's the year that song came out. Yes. And that was my first ballet dance. I did 2 ballet dances that year, during recital, but that was one of them. So that was really special too. So that kind of goes into that. I danced for a Christian studio at the start. And that really just, I feel like, I really started to learn the heart of dance and, and the heart of being a dancer athlete and just like God's perspective of that, and that like, he has given us this gift. And I love that, like, that was breathed inside of me and like, was told to me from day one. And I understood and I felt like I really understood that year. And I feel like God did grow me, like I was very like timid and shy. And then in just 9 months, I was like, I can't wait to get back to dance, and like dance for Jesus and do this, my teacher at that time, she was the one that actually started this studio. It's Studio J. It's still going now. It's huge. It's this massive performing arts center now.
Oh, cool.
Which is super cool. Yeah. But it was very small whenever I was there. It had really kind of just begun. And I don't know if you know who Craig Rochelle is with Life Church, but he's, the leader of the mega church, Life Church, and they are brother and sister. So Lisa Woods and Craig Rochelle, are brother and sister. So super cool. So she loved Jesus with all of her heart, and she wanted to open up the studio to, please him and to dance for him. So that's what the J stands for, is Jesus.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. So my parents obviously were like, we got to do this, and we actually knew all of them at that time too. Those families. Yeah. And, so she would not let us say the word can't in class. And that was like one of the first things she taught us, like even us, the little ones, like in ballet class, like we'd be praying, before we start class, we'd be stretching, and, she'd just be like encouraging us, like, we're going to just have some fun, turn on some worship music, but she also pushed us too. Like, she was an amazing athlete, too, and dancer. But yeah, and she was like, if you say the word can't, you have to memorize this verse, and you have to say Philippians 4:13, which is, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And I just love that. I love that. I have always carried that throughout my whole life. Like, anytime I feel discouraged, or I felt discouraged as a student, or even feel discouraged, as a creator or artist, if I'm having a rough patch, I'm like, I can do it. I can do it if I just keep my eyes on him. And I just feel like that's when I really started to, like, from day one, just started to grow in that, which is a blessing. And I know there's so many dancers out there that maybe find the Lord later in their dance and that don't have that opportunity early on, but I'm so grateful that I did. And my parents forced me to stay with it. So yeah,
that's super powerful. And it's amazing how the things that we learn in something like dance totally translate to every aspect of our lives, and as dance teachers, obviously we're like, guys, there's like so much more to this than just the movement, and the dance element and how it brings so much to our lives. And I just love that so much.
Yes, me too. And then, that really led me to really dancing, like inviting the Lord into my dance as I performed. And it wasn't just in the classroom, but taking him with me on stage was a big part of my growth as a dancer from day one through high school and even now, like continuously reminding myself, like, I need to bring the Lord with me, everywhere I go and everything that I'm doing. But there was something that has always stuck with me as well. And I do share with my students today that, especially my soloists, when I have time with them one-on-one, I'm like, there's something bigger, here, like we're dancing, for a purpose. And even if you're doing a jazz dance, hip hop dance, tap dance, it might not be saying, singing about Jesus or something like that, but you can still dance with your heart, and it can mean something more to you, and it can still bring joy or life to somebody in the audience,
Yeah, that's so good.
But I remember these moments backstage whenever I started competing solos, which I started competing with solos at an early age of 8.
Wow,
the second season, I think. Yeah, because it was like the second year of me dancing. I was 7, 8 years old. And so it was very quick. And I remember having these moments backstage, like my mom would be back there with me and just be praying with me. And then I kind of just like always would like have my alone time. I'd be like, okay, Mom, now I got to have my alone time. And I love that because like I did that throughout my whole performing, life, and I still do. And I have that moment with just me and the Lord. And I just sit there and pray that like he would just use me and, that I would be a light, and I would pierce the darkness, with no matter what I'm doing, or that I would bring joy to somebody's, life, or that I would touch them in a way that he could use me to touch them, that I would be a reflection. And later, like as I grew older, like I had people speaking that into my life and really showing me that, portraying that, and being that example. So I was able to be like, oh yeah, like this is what I'm used to doing, but growing in that. So yeah. And I would just pray for that. And then also whenever I was 8 years old, I actually met Jeff and Natalie Lewis before they were married. I met them at Dance Revolution in Dallas. So that was also cool because that was just like my second year dancing.
Yeah. So super early on in your journey, you're like already connecting to them.
Yes.
And obviously now they're family, which is cool, but just like such a huge part of your story too.
Yes. And Dance Revolution, I just love them. I just love everything that they do. So many people have been through there, too. So, and a lot of people that we know. So that's super cool, to see. And I think I'm actually going this year with Heartbeat, which is so exciting.
That is so good.
So I'm like, just, God is just so good. He just like intertwines us where he wants us. And I just think that's so beautiful. So yeah, that's really just the heart of, being a dancer and an artist. Like, I felt like I learned God's heart in that, and like that it was his, like the gift that he gave me. So yeah, that's how it all started.
Cool. That's awesome. So
thanks.
When did you shift over to arts?
Yes. So just a few years after that, really, I started dancing with more of a competitive studio after Studio J. So I really was like at a lot of competitions, but was still with a Christian studio, did a lot of ballet, was the bass, which sometimes isn't the case nowadays. I feel like there's a lot of studios that like compete, but they do a tiny little bit of ballet, and it's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But then there's some that still focus a lot on ballet and modern and these like really great techniques that they can take into their college and then they're performing. Cause I feel like some students, don't get that. And then they get into the real world of dance or the professional world, and they're like, oh, I'm not behind, but I don't know as much as maybe the person next to me.
Right.
So I felt like I still was growing in that, like a lot of ballet a week, multiple classes a week, plus point, plus all of that. I actually started point whenever I was 9.5 years old at Studio J before I started going to this next studio. Yeah. Okay. So I was really young, and very little, but she was like, you're ready. And I'm like, so glad that I had the opportunity to do that, because it really did open more doors later in my professional experience early on. So I actually began my professional career dancing in Branson, Missouri. I got hired by Dino Kartsanakis and Cheryl, his wife, and I was a part of a Christmas show. Yeah, so I was there for 2 consecutive seasons from October through December. So we lived there. Yeah, for a long time.
That's so cool.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, honestly, like I got to experience that at such a young age. I think it just kind of like I had that, experience. I was just like, wow, this is so great. Like I don't have to do this later, but like I could, if I wanted to ever do something like that again. And I knew that early on, and it really drove me to continue to work hard, because I really saw like how hard that world can be and how seriously it is taken at an early age.
Yeah.
Now, the professional world is so real, and it's not just a piece of cake, it is tough, and, you have to work hard and really stay focused. And I learned that, through this. The first year we did a little short tour at the end of our season, the show season in Branson. Yeah. And we performed every night in Branson, by the way. So we had every night we had a show during the week. And then on the weekends we had, I think like 2 or 3 sometimes on Saturdays. And then we had 1 or 2 on Sundays, depending on what was going on. Because sometimes we had video there. We had actually TBN come and do a live broadcast one day.
Oh, that's cool.
One show. Yeah. And it actually played for years later. So on TBN, during Christmas. Yeah. So super fun. But Dino is amazing. He loved Jesus. Him and his wife always prayed at the start of the day, the start of the show. We'd all go backstage and pray together. There were adult dancers. There were 20 adult dancers, 10 female, 10 male. And then there were 10 kids involved in this show. Yeah. But whenever they were out looking for kids in a studio to do this, there was a connection, with the studio that I was at. And then they were like, are there any point dancers that are kids and not older? Like they have to look like kids. And I still very much so look like a kid. I kind of still do. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding.
Wasn't going to say that, but
it's okay. I mean, everybody knows. People that know me that are listening to this right now are laughing right now because it's true. So Ben especially will laugh. No,
oh yeah.
So they were like, point dancer, awesome. We're going to give her the solo. So I was actually the Sugar Plum Fairy in this show for both years. It never changed because I had the same costume, 2 years in a row, and it worked out, So Anyway, so super fun. I got to partner with an adult dancer, one of the male dancers. He like lifted me at the start of it and stuff.
Aw.
And I had a couple of minutes on stage. Like it was a lot. It was super fun. And I remember like I was doing pirouettes on point and he was spinning me. It was the first time I'd ever learned that with a partner. And I remembered we did like 6, 7 pirouettes like every show. And he would just like spin me around. And I was like, oh my gosh. So that was really cool. But I remember like I trusted him so much because I was like, you're a pro, dude, you know? And he really was. He was the best ballet dancer that they had at that time. And he was my partner both years. He was there both years. So that was super cool.
The consistency. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And that is a very legit, like professional schedule.
I
remember talking to Cheryl about the Rockettes and they do, you know, like however many shows a day. And
kind of like that.
Yeah, basically like that schedule. I'm like, oh my goodness, that's a lot.
Yes. And I remember like, you know, I was homeschooled too, which was also a blessing at that time because they were like, we also need homeschoolers. Like it was like they were able to find, and there were only 2 kids out of all those kids that were not homeschooled, but their school, you know, allowed them to leave, that they still considered it education. They still sent them everything. So that was cool too. Like they were able to work with their schools. And I love that too, like knowing that in my head, like for future for my children, I'm like, no, like it's doable. Like if there's a gift and if there's, you know, something that they're being asked, you know, to do, like, I really believe that they can take a season to do that because it can really leave an impact, you know, on their life and really push them and inspire them to continue to do that. So, and I'm like, if the kid is wanting to do it and pursue it, let them do it, you know, so cool. It's so fun. But yeah. And then the second year we actually went on a 2-week tour on a tour bus, a huge tour bus. We slept on the tour bus. It was so fun. There were a few nights where we did like, you know, stay at a hotel and stuff like that and showered and all those things.
That's good.
Yeah. We needed that. And then we ended the tour in New York City and we got to perform at a church the first night that we were there. And we actually met everybody that was going to be in the show. And so we met Natalie Cole that evening. She was singing in the show. That's Nat King Cole's daughter. Yes. Yeah. And then we met a few other people too that were part of the show. And it was like a live orchestra, all of that huge. So that was really fun. And then the next night we actually got to perform at the Lincoln Center. What? And that was literally something that I will never forget. And it's super special to me. And I know it was such a gift from the Lord. Now, you know, looking back, I'm like, that is a gift from the Lord, you know, to be able to have that privilege, not even, you know, working in New York City, but just being chosen to do this one thing in Branson and then getting that opportunity later.
Yeah.
Was so cool. And we actually met Denzel Washington.
What?
Face to face. He was
so
like,
cool.
I want to, he was like, where are those children at? I want to meet those kids. Like he actually had interest in meeting us because he had watched us rehearsing earlier that day before the show.
Wow.
And he was like, I want to go meet them. Like, I want to shake their hands. Like, I want to meet these kids. And so, yeah, we have photos with him and everything.
That's legit.
You know, introduced himself. Yeah, it was super cool. He was encouraging us to just keep on doing what we're doing. And he was literally saying like, you're bringing so much joy to people tonight, you know?
Aww.
And it was just super cool to hear from somebody that's very well known. Yeah. But he's like, got
like a solid guy.
Shoulders. Definitely. Yeah. And I remembered like, you know, me being like, he's so cool. And then all of our parents being like, do you even realize what just happened? You know, and stuff when he left the room. And we were like, oh yeah. So, yeah, but his wife was actually reading the Christmas story about Jesus that night in the show.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was super cool. That was a great experience. Another cool thing that I remember from that day being a kid too, and like remembering looking backstage. So, you know, we obviously spent all day there before the show. So, yeah. So we spent a lot of time backstage too. And there's just white wall everywhere. It's probably still there of all of these, like, you know, famous people, singers, all sorts of, you know, artists, autographs written all over the walls, like on the ceiling, on the walls around, literally right before you get onto like the side, backstage, and on this, the curtains, and then onto the stage. So
wow,
it was
just
really
like feeling
cool.
the history and just
yes,
the gravity of the moment.
Yes, and I remember like our parents being like thanking God with us. Like we were just like praising the Lord, and it was just super cool. It was a really great experience. So so that's how my professional, career began. And really, I feel like that did open up more doors to doing more. I got to do more music videos in Branson, Missouri after that. I went back and competed later in a talent competition. I ended up winning.
Cool.
What was it? American Kids. The second year I competed, I was the only dancer that year, and I won the Entertainer of the Year. So it was like, there's local competition, state competitions, and then you go to the nationals at Branson. And I don't know, there's hundreds of entries. So there's a lot of cool things that kept on happening. Like right after that in Branson, I was like, do I want to dance in Branson? And it's funny because even to this day, I'm like, maybe God will send me back there one of these days. I don't know, but it's always been something that I always have loved Branson. And I also went there as a kid, and I watched the shows, and it was just super cool getting to experience that, personally later. It was really inspiring. Yes. And then that's kind of when I still like was competing like in high school. So then I was at arts. Okay. So this is whenever, right after that last season with Dino in New York, we actually started going to arts. Well, I actually went to this ballet school, the best ballet training I've ever had.
Yeah.
So I went there for a few months, and then I started doing summer stuff with arts. So that's whenever I met Micah, whenever I was 13.
Yeah.
And I re-met Jeff and Natalie. I remember we were a part of the studio, and then we had gotten this email saying that they were going to be moving, or Jeff and his family was going to be moving to Oklahoma to teach. And we were like, what? And my mom was like, that's Jeff Lewis from Dance Revolution. And I was just, jumping up and down, so excited. And then obviously who came with that was Ben, and then eventually Natalie, and then they got married, and that was so cool. So they taught a lot of my classes because I was in, that advanced level of classes, and they were teaching all the advanced. So lyrical, jazz, modern. They both taught lyrical, which was awesome because you got the best of both worlds with that. So that was fun. And then I also met Jesse and Clayton Winters.
Shout out to Jesse and Clayton as well.
Yes, amazing humans. Also people that I love to catch up with whenever I get the chance.
Yes.
And so they're just wonderful. And they weren't married at the time either. They had really just kind of just met. I think Jesse was there, and then Clayton came into the studio too right after I started, and like Jeff and them were there.
Okay,
and
cool.
So funny. So like some of my friends, and I wasn't there actually that day, but some of my friends saw their encounter of when they like met at the studio, when they re-met, and like we're like, oh yeah, that's you. Oh my gosh, hi. So super cute. I remember listening to theirs and being like, oh my gosh, that's so sweet, because I have told that story too. Yeah. That was great. I was involved with Arts International soon after that, which was led by Jesse and Clayton for a little bit before they moved. And then it turned into Arrows International. So they kind of just took that same core group of like 10 to 12 dancers. And then it turned it into Arrows, just the part-time company. So it just met like one day a week for a few hours. And then also was a part of Radiant Dance Company, which was started by one of my friends at the studio. And there was only about like 5 or 6 of us that were doing that. But people started coming up to her and going, like with different churches and ministries, going, can you come and dance? Can you come and dance? And we already had so much going on with Arrows and we were all pretty much a part of Arrows, but we just kind of started like this other little company. So of course, Katha says yes to everything that she loves. So she was like, yes, I love this, like you can have the studio to train and all that. So that was a blessing. And we met multiple times a week, and,
that's cool.
It was very serious. Yes. It was great. It was really cool. Like we created these works together. It was really awesome. I felt like it was a really good start to like your creativity, like choreography, like even more so, where it's like thousands of people are watching this, not just like your, people at your studio, but like more. That's leaving
or
a
in
bigger
like your
impact.
living room with your family watching. It's like, okay, this is going to be like a big deal.
Like arrows. Yes. And we knew that, like obviously being under Jeff and Natalie, that they were going to have all these great opportunities for us. But getting to do that was really cool. So like that led into like more music videos and things like this, like work that we actually got paid for. So it was actual professional work, ministry work. So that was really special. Like I remember we started with like this really small thing, and then we got to like buy equipment, speakers and stuff like this, where we could go out to the streets and like have ways to, minister and share the love of Jesus with our dance. So that was super cool. So yeah. And then, so that was like where the heart of ministry really started for me. It was just like, this can go deeper than just, the few performances a year at your studio, even though you're dancing for the Lord and, we're all having a great time, growing as an individual and as an artist and a dancer. I felt like it was more like hands-on, like we got to meet people personally. And I really loved that. Like, I loved that part of ministry. I loved that with Arrows. I really started to gain the knowledge of worship and just the heart of God in worship, and that worship and dance is one, and that like we can actually use that as one thing. And that like when we go on stage and we want to, perform our pieces with excellence, it's also in a worship mode and in this, very mindful spiritual place.
Yeah. So good.
And I love that. And like something that Natalie always said, and then, Jeff would say it too, is that we were created for such a time as this, and that like no obstacle can shake or change that. And I love that. That's like the whole meaning of Arrows, that they're preparing you, they're making disciples so we can make more disciples in the nations. And then, they're preparing us, raising us, setting a new standard and, getting ourselves ready to hit the mark. And that was really cool. Yeah. To be able to travel internationally with them and nationally a few times. And that was really cool. I was like in those moments, I was like, I want to be a missionary, like I wanted that. And I was like, I am one, like I am one right now. And God is calling me to that. It's not that, but it goes so much further than that, because there's so many people, that really pursue that with their whole, career and, their life. But I do think it's like going back to like such a time as this, like when he calls you to something like that, like it's for that moment, and I really believe that too. Like when they train teams, you train for so long and then you're gone for so long. And it's like this like month to longer, time frame of being with them is super cool. And it's a great challenge in all areas. And it's very humbling experience. So I just love that. I love mission trips and I love what they do. I know right now it's kind of hard for some people to do that kind of stuff, but I know the ones that have the heart are making it happen. So which is super encouraging.
Kind of incredible.
It is incredible.
With everything going on in the world and,
exactly
still making it happen.
Yes. So, so then my senior year, I auditioned for Deum, directed by Randall Flynn. Yes. And gosh, I mean, that's when the tears start to come because wow. I mean, it was like my first year of adulthood, like I had a lot of experiences that year and the second year, because I was there for 2 years. And I feel like I was learning how to be an artist, but I feel like I love that about Randy. I love how he trains his dancers to be an artist for the kingdom. And I just know those specific 2 years that we were there, he really talked a lot about that and shared that with us, in the mornings. And that was so great. And I just feel like the way he mentored us really left an impact on me.
Yeah,
it was so much like Jeff and Natalie, but they were a couple, which was amazing. But it was really cool to see him do that kind of on his own, but also through the years of his experience. It's very similar, but different story of how he, was where he is now.
It's cool.
Which is super
seeing
cool.
It like similar heart and mission, but how there's like different voices in that and different ways of expressing it and things like that. Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, Deum was amazing, and Randy was incredible. And he was a great father figure to us. He took care of his dancers. I felt like he really took good care of me whenever I was hurting and injured myself there. And I was just like, this is not happening. And I remember I was thinking about this the other day. I was like, he was like, come into my office. And I was like, I'm in trouble. And then I was like, and he's like, you're not, and I remember him saying, you're not in trouble. Like the first thing he said. And I was like, thank goodness. And he goes, don't feel bad for hurting. Like, we got to get you to feel better, and stuff like that. And he was like, you're going to take a whole week off. And I was like, you're kidding. I was like, we have a show in 2 weeks. And he goes, you're not going to be dancing the rest of the week. And I was like, because I had gotten hurt like the week before, weekend went by, still feeling bad.
Yeah.
And he took care of me. He wasn't like, you're going to do it, blah, 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 And I just like love that, because I feel like we all as artists have both sides of those experiences where it's not bad to be pushed. It's so good to be pushed, but you have to be able to tell your body, like, when do I stop? When do I go? And I love how when our leaders see that too, when they're sensing that in the spirit, which I feel like he does. And so does Jeff and Natalie, and these people that we're so, you and I have been so blessed to be under, like, they're like, this is beyond just what we see. This is like what's going on, So I really love that. And I felt like that's important as an artist. Like, we have to know when to stop, when to go, and we need to know when to say yes or no. So we aren't doing too much at once, or we aren't being too afraid to maybe say yes to this thing that God is trying to give us, or opening a door that he's been trying to open for a while now, or, stepping into those dreams that he wants us to pursue. So I just felt like I was really like learning that more, like being an adult and being in a company, you experience that more firsthand. So I just love that. So that was a great time in my life, and God really inspired me. Like, you are going to be doing this same thing. Like, you're going to be helping dancers, and you're going to be leading dancers. And I was teaching at that time, like, locally in Houston. And that was special because I, felt like I was inspired. I wasn't working with a company or anything like that at that time. I was just doing classes with studios and schools, but it was still firing me up for the future, because I was just starting teaching. I'd only been teaching for like a year or two. So
it was nice. That like, love for that
push. Yes, exactly. And I felt like a lot of my notes were stuff like that, things that were speaking to me like directly, like with teaching and like just being filled up so I can fill up others, so it was just super cool. So but that's pretty much my journey of training. And then I, was teaching during that time, but then more so after, came right back home, was going to stay another year at Deum, but then I ended up switching those plans kind of last minute. And then, I began teaching more. I was teaching a lot. Kath actually ended up having like 5 or 6 hours for me at arts, awesome. Like just a month out from like classes or something, or maybe less. So that was a blessing. And I was working with Jeff and Natalie again. We were in the company again, Micah and I together. And so that was really cool. Teaching is just great. And I'm still doing it. So
that's so cool. And speaking of teaching, I loved what you were saying about kind of when you sent some thoughts about kind of finding balance as a teacher and what that looks like. I would love to hear you kind of expand on that a little bit.
I would love to.
And the balance of pushing and like giving grace, that kind of stuff.
Yes. I felt like God was really speaking to me whenever I was preparing for that, because teaching is a big part of my life right now outside of being a mom. And it's really the only other thing I'm spending a lot of my time doing. And it takes a lot of time. Us teachers know how much sacrifice teaching is, but it's beautiful. It's a beautiful calling and we love it. And I feel like we have a lot of love for what we do, which is great. But so whenever I teach, I just feel like my experience the last 10 years, I have gained just this different perspective of, like I'm the one teaching, like these kids are looking up to me and they're waiting for all of these answers. I feel like that's kind of the difference maybe between even teaching for a company, like, professional company, like we still are, looking for answers, but it's so different when you're educating, students, and like they are literally there to ask questions, to grow, and creating a safe place is so important to me. So like, firstly, I guess with that, I just love being real with my students and I love comparing these things with them, but finding the balance of different things. So the few things that I had written out was finding the balance between competing and then finding humility. I think right now, that was the first thing that popped into my head because literally right now, that's what I'm dealing with, working for a competitive studio. I'm working with the company kids, the top, like best 4 levels of company. So I'm like with the preteens, which are amazing kids. They're sponges. They can bend and are so flexible and do flips and tricks because they literally are so bendy and brave. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know if this is an acro class tonight, so I'm like, but it's so exciting though, because I can like be like, hey, can you do this? And they're like, yeah, and just do it. It's so cool.
It's like super willing.
Super willing and so amazing. These kids are just on fire. Like, I'm like, okay, now express here. And they're just doing it like 110%. And I'm like, they have no doubts in their head yet. They have no insecurities. They're just like, go, go, go. So I love that I get to teach that age, right now, because I've been with this studio for 3 years now. This is my 3rd season. So I've gotten to see like these preteens grow to the now teens and seniors.
Yeah.
So I teach all those levels, preteen, teens, 2 teens, and then senior level. So that's really cool. But yeah, so like the competing and humility is so important to me in the classroom. Like walking through these doors, you're here to be focused. You're going to work hard. The standard is here. This is what I'm expecting of you. But also, we're not going to have bad attitudes. We're not going to be down on ourselves. We're not going to speak negatively about ourselves. I want you to find humility in this, and also not competing against one another, lifting each other up, I think is so important. And I love that because that's what I grew up with. Not everybody has that. I feel like some people will have the opposite where they're like always competing against the dancers in the room, and it's not really as much of a team, team spirit. And this studio, I have just so much loved because of that. The director is amazing. It's literally hands down my favorite place I've ever taught to this day.
That's awesome.
And I loved teaching at arts, but I don't know. It's just different. I think it's because I had that competitive background and I used it in a way that was ministry too. So it's fun that I get to do that.
Combining those elements of your experience. Yeah.
Yes. And like they do everything, so it's like, just like what I did as well. Like, so they kind of have that same respect as I do as a dancer and being well-rounded and, being trained in all styles of dance and stuff like that. So I'm like, yeah, we're going to do some hip hop tonight, like I'm like not doing hip hop, but like I can express that in my teaching, and with tap and like be able to put everything together. So that's super really fun. Cool. Yeah. So that striving versus surrendering, which I think is a huge one. Just working until it like you can't sleep at night and you're like, why am I not getting this? Why am I not getting this? And I have soloists specifically that are like, why am I, like we've gone over this a lot. Like, we got to get this now. And they're like, so, or like all the excuses, and I'm like, okay, now we just got to surrender in it. We got to move on. We'll come back to this, so just finding that balance is really awesome. And, that as a dancer too, you'll, all these things, us listening and hearing, like we know, because we've gone through all of these as professionals. So, and then head versus heart. Whenever I was going back through this, I had the image of like the mirror in the dance room specifically. So like as a dancer, like you're training in front of a mirror because it helps you see your lines and it helps learning. You can see the teacher better. It helps you to, set, like when we're setting choreography, as a teacher, and then it's helping them with, all of the dances and all the choreography and a bunch of different things, right? That's why we have the mirrors. Helps us. But I think a lot of times too, you can like look at yourself in the mirror all day long, and then you start to judge yourself, and then you start to like kind of put yourself down, and then you're like, then it gets all like mental. It's like this mental battle, like with the mirror, or like if it's, body image or whatever it might be, whatever these teachers and people, like whatever atmosphere is being created is how you're going to feel about yourself going into that class.
Ooh,
and if you're at this, and if you're at the studio, like all evening, multiple times a week, you just had a long day of school. Like these are kids, like I think sometimes like teachers, and I literally ask my kids, like, I'm like, what time did you get up today? They're like, this time, really early. And I'm like, okay, well, like, just give yourself some grace. Like, we need to think about how you're feeling, so like verse the heart, like head versus the heart, like, how is our heart doing, by staring at the mirror all day or continuing to work on this solo all the time? Like, where's your heart in it? And then also just being the reflection of the Lord. Jeff and Natalie talked about this a lot. Natalie specifically, she would talk about like how, like our sternum and like our heart speaks while we dance. And that if we're not dancing up, then we can't dance out, because if we're dancing down and like in, and we're like all for ourselves and we're dancing for ourselves every day, it really becomes, like you're striving, and you're competing, and all these things. And it's really hard to surrender and do all of that. So I love that imagery too, with the head versus heart. So it's like, as soon as you lift your gaze up, lift your chin up, dance with your heart, it's easier to really invite people in. And that's an automatic reflection from God, what he's doing, using you, and then giving it out to the people that are watching, which I just love that analogy with the audience and performing, and that it's not just ours, but it's for other people too. So
I love that.
Yeah. And then look versus feel, very similar to the head versus heart, just like what it looks like versus what it feels like turning away from the mirror. What does that feel like? How does that dance feel? How's it speaking to you differently? It's going from a movement to meaning, like there's meaning behind the movement now, not just the arabesque, but what is your soul feeling when you do that arabesque, that PK arabesque?
Yes.
Or, if you're on the ground doing your floor work, like it's taking it to the next level, and making it, like feel like, how does it feel? And I feel like I learned that a lot at Aldan, like doing modern and all that stuff, like focusing on that technique every day is so good for that too. Like you really learn how to like control your body even more in a different way, feeling grounded, feeling secure in your movement. And I think that's really beautiful too,
Yeah.
So like all these things, like I try to share with my kids, like I'm like, okay, now we're going to take our plie and we're going to make meaning out of it. We're going to have intention behind our plie, intention behind our pirouettes, our leaps, whatever it might be. Like, don't wipe the expression off of your face in your turns. Keep it going. You're turning for the Lord. You're turning because this is so fun and this is so great and you work so hard. Like, why would you not have fun while you do it?
Exactly. It's such a good reminder. I think I'm kind of at that point with my students of trying to find ways to connect that for them. So that was such a good reminder of
Thank you.
How to connect it. Because it is easy to just get so much into like almost the task of it and the image of it, and not really get the heart of it. So
exactly,
I'm definitely going to be like implementing that like tomorrow.
Thank you. Yes.
We need to get into what is the meaning behind this,
Exactly. And I feel like early on, because, it's new for me too, new season. So like a lot of these things are so fresh, but a lot of kids go into the classroom, or students, whatever kind of students you have, or company members, everybody's like, go, 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 go. Like we have this to-do list, and it's like, that's so okay. The to-do list is great and beautiful. But if you start out with like, let's all just breathe together. Let's like know why we're doing this. That makes those days a little bit easier. when kids start to like really like, strive and like they're like battling a lot with these things because they're forgetting the truths about why we dance or how much meaning can we put into our dance or our art or whatever it might be that we're creating. So
Yeah.
yes, I love that. And then weakness versus resurrection. The Lord gave that to me from reading his word and the other day. And it was just so beautiful. Like, I was like, this is literally how God views us. Like, we can be weak, can be weak creation, right? And it's kind of like that, like we create, right? So we can create something and there might be moments of weakness, but there's in those moments, we have to find that surrender in those weak moments, because that's when he takes over. And I love that's so hard too, because us being a teacher, we want to control, which we do. That's a responsibility. We need to continue to guide. We need to continue to have order. But eventually, if you just keep on reminding them, like, you will resurrect from this, like, now what do we need to do to build that weakness, right? We need to get stronger. So what are we going to do? And we know as teachers how to do that, like what steps we need to take. But I love that. And kind of like what you just said, like you have those moments where you're like almost doubtful and you're like, I don't know if this is the image that I wanted for this dance, or I don't know, that didn't really work. And that's okay, but it was weak, but it's going to resurrect and it'll be redeemed, and I love that. And then something that just going back over it, like I was like, that's so powerful, because like literally just like in the gospel, right? Jesus, the tomb is literally empty. Like he is alive. He is living in us. He's not still there. He's not sitting in that weakness. Like he is resurrected. And I just love that. What else did I say? Like giving your gift back to the Lord. Like I wrote that down. Like it's just a reminder to give it back to him. So so I love that. Yeah.
Such good thoughts and things that I think each of us can take in our own lives, but also, like you said, to kind of help pass to our students. Cause I'm sure there's lots of teachers that are listening to this. So it's like just really good reminders and things that are easy to lose sight of sometimes, So.
Amen. Yes, it is. Because we're human. So it's hard to remember that we were created for big things,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm curious because I know you talked about being a mom of two.
Yes. They're amazing. The kids are just great and
super cool.
Yeah. Mike and I are just in love with them. They bring so much joy to our lives and people around them.
Yeah, that's so cool. And I love how kids can do that. They can just like shift the atmosphere,
like completely
bring a whole new element of joy. It's kind of like, Christmas when it's all adults is great and fun. But then when you get kids in the picture, it's just like so the best.
Different. It's literally like so joyous and loud and so fun. Like just paper being thrown everywhere. And you're like, oh my gosh, there's kids. And they're just so excited to get their gifts. Oh, it's so fun. Yes. That's exactly how it is. It's like every morning you don't know what you're going to wake up to, but most of the time kids are very happy and excited, and it's like a new day, and I'm just like, and that's literally like, it reminds me of childlike faith, like having that energy and having that it's a new day and I believe in these things. His mercies are new every morning, and no matter what you went through the day before too, like we leave an impact on our children, what we say, what we do, how we're raising them and how we're, raising them up in our home. But what's so beautiful is like when you build that trust with them, it's like, oh my gosh, it's like they trust me so much. Even though I got a little upset at them yesterday, they don't hold that against me today. And I love that. I think with time it can, if that's not a healthy relationship, but I think but knowing like they're just so innocent and pure, that also makes you be like, I just have to be a good person for my children. And I think it really is this like a whole different experience. And something that I wanted to share is just like, I mean, and every parent, knows this, that it's a hands-on learning experience. It's not like you can read, you can do all this stuff, you can prepare, just like with pregnancy and all these things, like, you can prepare and know some of the things that you're going to experience. But then as soon as they're there, it's like, whoa, and
totally
then you're like,
different in reality until you walk it.
Yes. And it's just like babysitting, it's like, you could have a plan for the day, but it might not go always according to plan,
right.
And it's going to kind of change.
99.999% of the time it doesn't.
Exactly. And I think it is so different, like having your own children too, because they know you so well. It's almost scary. Like they start, like Quinn is like saying stuff that we say, and it's hilarious because we're like, that's Micah, that's Jocelyn, and it's just so funny. Or then we're like, who says that? And then we're trying to figure out, and he's so witty, he's so smart, and he just a big sponge right now, like learning everything. I just told my mom literally today, dropping them off to get babysat, I was like, I think I need to be teaching him another language, because this kid's memory is incredible. And you don't realize until they're like right there repeating things. It's like, and sentences. I mean, it's just, I'm like, wow, it's amazing. I love talking with Quinn. He is.
Yes.
I just told him last night, I was like, that you're my best friend. Like, aww, I love you. Like, you are just amazing. And I just like love being a parent because of that. I love the closeness, the opportunity to have another friend, and like be a friend to him too. And, like that's similar with the teaching, like, I feel like that's like, I'm able to be that, in both of my worlds. And I love that. And I love just being real, and just being close, and open and, communicating is everything. And I feel like that's helped us so much with raising Quinn and now Phoebe, like just communicating. And even like little Phoebe, she's 6 months old, but it makes a difference, when Quinn talks to her or communicates with her, when we're walking by, or if we're walking by and she's playing in her little, exerciser thing. Like, it's like, acknowledging, their presence builds them up. And I just love that. And with teaching, it's the same way, sometimes I get texts from moms. They're like, hey, they kind of just want to hang out, and I'm like, okay, let's do it. Like we feel disconnected. Let's, call each other or something, and we start to feel that as humans, we feel disconnected. And I think finding that community is so important, and it within your own home is so important, because if it's lacking there, it's hard to do that out, if that's a church, if that's wherever. It's going to be really hard to connect if, you're not connecting with your family and your loved ones. So, and your spouse and just all of that. So important, so I love that.
It's a great way to like talk about community. And I love like you're saying, just the power that you have as a parent, as a teacher, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
And just, it's really amazing how big of an impact. Like, I love what you said, actually. Sorry, I'm like jumping around, but I love what you said about like acknowledging people's presence and just who they are. And that can, it's so small in a sense, but can totally change a person.
It does.
So incredible.
Because like, that's where we go to the next place. Like, that's how we connect. And then we feel like we need to be a part of this next. And like, even just looking back at all of, the things that I just talked about, it is finding that connection. It's that networking. It's, whatever it might be in the ministry world or the dance world or whatever it is that you're pursuing. It's like so important to have that connection. And, I know some people's experiences might be this, and then the others might be this, even at the same place, because it's might not be meant for that person as long, right? Or in the same way, they're supposed to be in a different spot eventually, or whatever. Or maybe someone will be a part of a community for years and years and years. And I think that's amazing. I'm like, oh my goodness, like the place that Micah works right now, people have been at this place since the day it started, like 15 to 20 years ago. And it's like, oh my goodness, like that's amazing that he's working in a place where people love, and people have come back, because they love that community there and they love that company. And I just think that's really important to find your spot, we need that community. We need that connection as humans.
Yes. So. And I think that makes a big difference in kind of the quality of life and quality of the work we do.
Oh, yeah.
And I think when people can feel connected in, it really doesn't matter what you're doing so much as who you're doing it with, and having that why behind it and feeling like you have purpose in what you're doing. Doesn't matter if it's dance or something else, but yeah.
Exactly,
super cool.
Rachel. Exactly. Yes, it is super cool. And, and being a mom, it's just that, and being a parent and being, having, being a wife and, it's a lot of that. And then, keeping God in the center of it, if you choose to do that. And, I think that also kind of the same thing, with competing versus humility and this, it can go with that too. Like, with your spouse, like, am I going to compete against you, or are we going to find humility with each other? Am I going to strive? Am I going to continue to strive in this relationship, or are we, going to surrender some of these things to the Lord? They could go on with all of that too. And then like with being a mom, preach. Yes. Thank you, God. Cause like, that's exactly the way it is. You wake up and you're like, God, I need answers. I don't know how to direct this, situation yet. What do you want me to do? What do you want me to say? Because sometimes we do have to step out of situations, even just having a toddler, even having a 6-month-old, you have to, you can't always have an answer right then. And I think, God has the answers, right? He knows, he's the author. So, we can go to him and then he will guide us through the Spirit. And I love that. And he will speak to us through his word, and his truths and prayer and our time with him. And then just inviting him. Like, I just feel like Micah and I like always just ask that he will be here, and that we just invite him to be in this place, and that we invite him to be a part of the good and the bad and the hard, and it's just like, the good, the beautiful, and, and that's so important. And we all go through things, the good times and the bad times. So when we know that we have that security and foundation in him and that anchor in him, it just makes such a difference. For sure.
For real. So one thing that I like to ask everybody, because it's just really cool to hear what people have on their hearts. Is there something that you feel like you want to share with other artists right now, kind of in this season?
Yes, I do. So I feel like the Lord just wanted me to talk about like the body, mind, and spirit, and just the health of those three things separate, and then how important they are to be working together as a team.
Yeah.
And I feel like just in my story, like of where God has taken me and in my testimony, like I feel like that's what he's been doing in my life. And I feel like he's been, helping me in all these areas to know how to give this and help people and encourage people. And I feel like I do this as a teacher and as a mom, and like these things. And even whenever it's lacking, like I know, like when it is, like I'm like, thank you, God, for showing me this and teaching me this so I can be better, so then I can help other people be better. So body, the health and love towards your physical body is so important if you want to be able to do what you do long term. And that just speaks for itself. We know as adults that we have to take care of ourselves in all different ways, with what we eat, the sleep, and just if we are injured, if we're an athlete like us, we have to take care of ourselves. And being a teacher, like I see that, and I can speak life into my students, or my children, and people around me like, hey, what if you did this? Just a suggestion, and it can help a lot. And then mind, love this one because I feel like we always have, mental battles that we're having to deal with. Your mental health can either lift you up or tear you down. Doing mental checks and making sure you are dealing with your mental battles quickly and with intention is key to staying focused and joyful. Knowing the truths and beauty God sees in you by praying and being in his word, believing it, and let it renew your mind daily. That's what that means to me. Jesus is the most important part to that. And then just taking care of it quickly. It's not that we have to know what we need to do. It's just dealing with it. If that's talking to somebody, if that's not talking to somebody, that's going straight to the Lord, and all this stuff, which we need to be doing anyways as believers, but having someone to talk to about stuff, I think is also really important. And if not, like, just really try to work it out with the Lord and know what you need to do. What environment are you in? What atmosphere are you putting yourself around that's maybe feeding a negative? And how do I need to feed it positively?
Yeah.
I think really. So, and then most important, the spirit. Obviously, all of these things go hand in hand. When one is weak, the others might be thriving, but quickly it can affect the others, especially when the spirit is out of place. Like when the spirit's out of place, which can often happen, right? We're constantly battling, between our flesh and the spirit as believers. To me, this is the most important. I want to do the things I do for my Creator, my Heavenly Father. The moment I try to do something on my own without God's guidance, that's when I have to take a step back, align my spirit, knowing that if I lose focus on God's heart and my gift, the body and mind will soon be lacking too. So, it can affect your mental, your mind when the spirit's lacking. And then eventually I think that can even wear on your body. I think dancers get very stuck at times with injuries, and they get stuck in the worldly things around us that we go, oh, I need to do a spirit check, like I need to fill myself up like we've been talking about, and knowing the truths, about ourselves and everything. So I think just keeping your eyes on Christ is the best thing when you are a believer artist and you're wanting to make a creative impact into this world. Like that, all of those things are so important. Like you have to be healthy so then you can create healthy art, right? Or healthy creations. So
so good. I love it. I love that focus on mind, body, and spirit, and like how they all work together and impact each other for sure. Yeah,
they do. Yes.
Well, I like to ask also what one of your favorite things is right now, just for a fun, like wrap up question.
Yes. I mean, literally right now, either having time at home with my family or even just getting out of the house, getting some fresh air, just getting to do what our family loves to do and just go and have fun and make memories is honestly just one of my favorite things right now. Because right now, like we have time for it, but when we make time, it's usually planned and fun. And, you have that set aside. And Mike is doing a lot of work in school at the moment. So having that time with him is really special. We just had a date night literally a couple of days ago for the first time in a while. Just things like that you start to take for granted that you have to make happen in your relationships, and the time. And like getting to talk to friends, catching up like this, just those things to me like are so important to me. And I think as I'm getting older, I'm realizing like just how beautiful those times are and that this is why we're here to build each other up. So that's on. I know that's kind of cliche, but it's honestly, like I'm not much of a hobby person right now. So I really just spend so much time with my children. Like, I mean, Quinn, he loves to paint. He loves to do these things. So I like doing stuff like that with him. I love, being creative with him too and seeing that spark in him and doing stuff like that. But even just going on a simple walk with my kids, in the stroller with Phoebe, just things like that are
really
just
cool.
Really life-giving at the moment, just experiencing God's nature together and all that. So,
Well, Jocelyn, this has been so awesome. And thank you so much for taking the time to chat and share just your heart for dance and ministry and teaching and motherhood, the things. It's been such a joy.
Thank you. It really has been a joy. Thank you, Rachel, for having me.
Isn't Jocelyn just the best, you guys? I love her so much, and it was super fun getting to catch up with her today. You can find all the links, the full show notes, and additional resources on our website, creativeimpactpodcast.com. I'd also encourage you to check out our Patreon community where you can find bonus content like I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, and that's at creativeimpactpodcast.com/Patreon. That's creativeimpactpodcast.com/Patreon. If you're enjoying the show, I would be so honored if you'd take just a moment to rate and review the show in whatever podcast platform you happen to be listening in. Leaving a rating and review helps others find the show and become part of our community. Thank you so much for listening to the Creative Impact Podcast. The music for the show was produced by Michael Cash. Until next time, remember that you were designed to create, made to inspire, continue living with purpose and making an impact. See you next time, friends.